the will that spoke louder than blood. The sun over Millstone Grove was too cheerful for what the day represented. Jameson Reed stood outside the stately brick building with his hand wrapped tightly around a worn funeral program, the picture of Margaret Langford smiling gently from its cover. She had raised him since he was 6 years old. Not fostered, not watched over raised. And today was supposed to be about mourning her, remembering her, not preparing for battle. But as he walked through the double glass doors of Ellery and Frank's LLP, a sleek, clinical law office in the center of town, a heavy knot formed in his chest. Something was off. The receptionist greeted him with a glance too brief, her eyes flickering to a list on the desk before she motioned him inside. The long mahogany conference table gleamed under the harsh ceiling lights. At one end sat Luke and Danielle Langford, Margaret's biological children. Their skin matched hers. Their faces carried her nose, her eyes. But none of them held her heart. Jameson knew that too well. He took his place alone at the other end of the table. Mr. Arthur Crowley, Margaret's family attorney for nearly 2 decades, walked in, a man whose gray suit and white hair seemed made to blend in with the sterile walls around him. He shuffled a thick stack of papers with ceremonial gravity, like a magician preparing a final trick. Crowley cleared his throat. Margaret made a private amendment to her will 3 weeks before she passed. Jameson's brows drew together. "That's not possible," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "She told me. I'm afraid there's only one version of the final will on record." Crowley slid a folder across the table. "Witnessed by the staff at her care facility." Jameson opened it slowly. The words on the page blurred slightly as his eyes skimmed the distribution list. Luke Langford, 50%. Danielle Langford, 50%. That was it. No mention of him. No acknowledgement. Not even a footnote. Danielle was scrolling on her phone. Luke leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, a smirk creeping over his lips like mold. Jameson said nothing. No tears. No confrontation. Just a stillness that unnerved even the smug faces across from him. Because something didn't add up. 3 weeks before she passed, Margaret's body had weakened, but her mind remained sharp. He remembered sitting beside her as she sipped chamomile tea, her fingers trembling slightly. That's when she asked him, "Jamie, can you install one of those little cameras in my study? Nothing fancy, just for peace of mind." She had smiled at him, fragile but firm. "Sometimes, I think people are going through my things when I'm asleep." He didn't ask questions. He never did when it came to her. Just installed the camera, a small, silent device tucked between 2 books on a high shelf. And then, amid the grief and silence that followed her passing, he had forgotten about it. Until now. Jameson stood without another word and walked out. As he passed Luke, he heard the mockery in his voice. Guess the charity case didn't pan out. Jameson turned, looked him squarely in the eye, and replied with a calm that chilled the air between them. "We'll see." That night, the old bedroom he once occupied as a child felt colder than usual. The neatly made bed, the bookshelf still stocked with paperbacks Margaret had given him, the framed high school graduation photo on the desk, all of it whispered memories he wasn't ready to unpack. He opened his laptop, logging into the secure cloud account linked to the camera. It took a moment to load. Then, the footage began to buffer. He held his breath. The timestamp read, 12 days before Margaret's death. The angle was clear. Margaret sat at her desk in a soft cardigan, her voice weak but unmistakably her. "This is for clarity," she said, looking straight into the camera. "My will states that everything I own should be divided equally among my 3 children." A pause. "Yes, 3. Luke, Danielle, and Jameson." His name, spoken plainly, deliberately, as if she knew it would be contested. "I know not everyone agrees," she said softly, "but love isn't measured by blood. Jamie is my son. He deserves the same as the others." She held up a folder to the camera. "This is the official signed will. Witnessed. Sealed. If it goes missing, then no, I never changed my mind." Then the screen went black. Jameson stared at the monitor, hands trembling. Another video queued up. 4 days later. The footage showed Arthur Crowley entering her study alone. Confident. No hesitation. He opened a drawer, pulled out the same folder Margaret had shown on camera, examined it briefly, then slid a new document in its place. He tucked Margaret's version into his briefcase. Seconds later, Luke appeared in the doorway. "Done?" he asked. Crowley nodded. The video froze. And so did Jameson. He downloaded both videos to a flash drive, slid it into his coat pocket, and left the room. The next morning, Mr. Crowley looked up from his leather chair, surprised to see Jameson walk into his office unannounced. Jameson didn't sit. He walked to the desk, pulled out the flash drive, and set it down. "What's this?" Crowley asked, smiling uneasily. "Clarity," Jameson replied. Crowley reached for the drive, but Jameson's hand stopped him. "Before you view that, I suggest you think about the last time you were in my mother's study." Crowley paled. "She asked me to install a camera. Just for peace of mind," Jameson said, voice low and controlled. "Turns out, she was right to worry." Crowley opened his mouth, then closed it again. Jameson continued. "You're going to restore the correct will. Immediately, or I'll send this footage to the Bar Association, the police, and the press." The room fell into a suffocating silence. Crowley's composure cracked. "I'll make it right," he said. And just like that, the script rewrote itself. A week later, the Langford family gathered again, this time in a different office, a different room, but the same man sat at the head of the table. Crowley looked smaller now, less composed, less rehearsed. Luke and Danielle sat together. Neither spoke. Danielle's phone was forgotten in her purse. Luke looked like he'd aged 10 years in a week. Jameson stood at the far end. "I have something to show you," he said. He inserted the flash drive into the TV screen at the front of the room. The footage played. Margaret's voice filled the air. Her declaration was clear, her intent undeniable. When the second clip played, Crowley's deception and Luke's silent complicity, the room went still as stone. Danielle whispered, "Oh my God." Luke stood slowly, but for once said nothing. Then came a knock at the door. 2 uniformed officers entered. "Arthur Crowley," one of them asked. Crowley stood, mouth dry. "There's been a misunderstanding." But no one was listening. He was escorted out in silence. The amended will was nullified. The original reinstated. Criminal charges filed. And Jameson? He didn't gloat. He didn't celebrate. He just walked out, the flash drive still warm in his pocket. As he passed Luke and Danielle, he paused for just a moment. "I didn't come for your apology," he said. "I came for justice." He left that building, and with it, the shadows they tried to bury him in. Months passed. Autumn spread gold across Millstone Grove. The Langford house stood quieter now. Margaret's garden overgrown, but still beautiful. Her voice echoed, not in the walls, but in the impact she left behind. Jameson never went back. Closure didn't come from property or vengeance. It came from purpose. On the corner of Birch and Alder sat a small brick office, modest and warm. The hand-painted sign read, "Langford Foundation for Truth and Equity." Inside, 2 desks, shelves of legal guides, and donated computers served the only mission Jameson cared about: helping others fight back when they were erased. He wasn't a lawyer, but he didn't need to be. He had lived what others only feared. A young woman looked up from the front desk. "Mr. Reed, there's a girl from East Park waiting. She thinks her aunt switched guardianship papers without consent." Jameson nodded. He knew the signs too well. That afternoon, he helped her begin the process to reclaim what was hers. Because justice didn't always come in courtrooms or headlines. Sometimes it arrived quietly, carried by those who refused to be erased. Outside, as the leaves danced in the wind, a boy passed with his father. He stopped and read the painted sign. "Langford, that's a strong name," the boy said. The father smiled. "It belongs to someone who made sure the truth was louder than lies." Jameson leaned against the doorframe, letting the sun warm his shoulders. He didn't need to be accepted anymore. He had rewritten the story, not just his, but for others too. Because the truth doesn't need permission. It only needs someone brave enough to carry it.